$2. That is every last cent you will spend on the trick I am about to show you. And by the time we are through here, every fly on your porch, in your kitchen, and buzzing around that fruit bowl on your counter is going to be gone. Now, I want you to think about what a pest control company charges just to walk through your door and hang up a few sticky strips. $80, sometimes more. And they will tell you, straight to your face, that flies are just a summer nuisance you have to live with. They will not tell you about the trick sitting in your own refrigerator and spice rack right now, because if you knew about it, you would never call them again. I am going to show you exactly how the old-timers made this, step by step, with the real reason it works, not just a story passed down without an explanation. And I am going to be honest with you about the one thing this trick will not do, because I would rather you hear that from me than find out the hard way. Stick with me too, because partway through, I want to tell you where I first learned this, from my own grandfather's kitchen, and it might be the part you remember longest. Let's get into it. If you have ever stood in your own kitchen in the middle of July, swatting at the same fly for the third time in 10 minutes, you already know the problem does not get better on its own. It lands on the rim of your coffee cup. It crawls across the screen door every time somebody walks in or out. You drape a cloth over the fruit bowl, and somehow, by supper time, there are 3 more flies than there were that morning. You buy the cardboard strip from the hardware store for $4, hang it from the ceiling, and it works for about 2 days before it dries out and quits. You buy the spray can for $12 or $15, and now your kitchen smells like a chemical plant, and half the time the flies just fly around the mist and land right back on the counter. Some folks give up and call an exterminator, and that is a good $80 to $150 for someone to walk through your house and tell you the same thing you already knew, that you have flies. None of that gets to the actual reason the flies keep coming back. They are not there by accident. Something in your kitchen or on your porch is calling them in. Some sweetness, some rot, some smell we cannot even notice anymore because we live in the house every day. The old-timers understood that a fly has to be drawn to something before it can be caught by anything, and that is exactly where this $2 trick starts. So here is what you actually need, and I want you to hear how plain it is before I show you how to put it together. A cup of whole milk, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of ground black pepper. That is the whole list. If you already keep milk in the refrigerator, and sugar and pepper in the cabinet, like most kitchens do, this trick costs you nothing at all. If you have to buy a small tin of ground black pepper to have enough on hand, you are looking at maybe $2, and that tin will last you the rest of the fly season, and then some. This is not a spray, and it is not a trap you have to check and empty. It is a saucer you set out, the same way farm kitchens have done it for longer than any of us have been alive. Let me show you exactly how my own family puts it together. Start by warming your cup of milk in a small pan over low heat. You are not trying to boil it, just warm it enough that the next 2 ingredients dissolve into it properly. Once it is warm, stir in your 2 tablespoons of sugar until it disappears into the milk completely. Then stir in your 2 tablespoons of ground black pepper. The mixture will look speckled and a little gray. And that is exactly right. That is not a mistake. Let it simmer, low and gentle, for about 2 or 3 minutes, just enough to bring out the smell of the pepper into the milk. Then take it off the heat and let it cool until it is only slightly warm to the touch. Pour the whole mixture into a shallow dish. A saucer or the lid of a mason jar works just fine. Anything with a wide, open surface rather than a deep bowl. Set that saucer wherever the flies gather worst, the kitchen counter, the windowsill, the porch railing, and now you wait. Within an hour, on a bad fly day, you will start to see them landing on the rim, drawn by the sweetness of the milk and sugar, and by evening, that saucer will tell its own story. Now, here is the part most videos on this trick skip right over, and I think you deserve the real explanation, not just the folklore. Flies are drawn to the milk and sugar for the same reason they are drawn to anything sweet and slightly fermenting. It smells to them like food, the same as a piece of ripe fruit left out on the counter. That part is simple. The black pepper is the part doing the actual work. Black pepper contains a compound called piperine, and entomologists who have studied it have found that piperine is genuinely irritating and toxic to small insects when they ingest it, disrupting their nervous system in a way it simply does not affect us at the amounts we use in cooking. A fly's body is small enough that a mouthful of that pepper-laced milk is enough to do real damage. The old-timers did not know the word piperine. They just knew that pepper and milk left out this way meant fewer flies by morning, and generations of watching that happen was proof enough for them. We just happen to understand the chemistry behind it now. There is a reason I keep telling you to use a shallow dish and not a deep bowl too, and it is not just habit. The wider the surface, the more of that pepper-laced milk a fly can reach and land on at once, and the more of them can feed at the same time instead of waiting their turn. A deep glass with a narrow opening cuts that surface down to almost nothing. A saucer or a pie tin gives you the most working surface for the same cup of milk. I want to be straight with you, this is not a laboratory-tested product with a guarantee printed on a box. It is an old home method with a real, explainable reason it works. And in my own experience, and in the experience of the family I learned it from, it works well. I first saw this done at my grandfather's place, out past the milking barn, on a hot August morning when I could not have been more than 8 or 9 years old. My grandmother kept a chipped white saucer on the windowsill above the kitchen sink, and every few days, without a word to anybody, she would warm up a little milk on the stove, same as I just showed you, and set a fresh saucer out. I asked her once why she bothered with something so plain when the store in town sold sprays and strips. She told me the spray never got rid of the flies, it just moved them to the next room for an afternoon, and that her mother had used the milk and pepper trick her whole life, and her mother before her. I can still picture that kitchen, the smell of hay drifting in from the barn every time the screen door swung open, and that little white saucer catching the morning light on the sill above the sink. That saucer sat on that windowsill every summer I can remember, and I do not recall a single year the kitchen was overrun with flies the way some of the neighboring farms were. It was never a chore to anybody. It was just something you did, the way you fed the chickens or brought in the wash. I think about that a good deal now, how something so plain and so cheap got passed down for 3 generations before anybody had a scientific word to explain why it worked. Now, where you put this saucer matters, and I want to walk you through a few of the spots where it does the most good. On the kitchen counter or windowsill, it handles the everyday houseflies drawn in by cooking smells and the fruit bowl. Set out on a screened porch or near a back door that gets left open, it catches the flies before they ever make it into the house proper. Near a barn or a chicken coop, it can cut down the population considerably, though I will tell you plainly, out around livestock, you are fighting a much bigger source of flies, and one saucer is not going to outcompete a whole manure pile. And that brings me to the honest part I promised you at the start. This trick works well on ordinary houseflies, and the flies drawn in by something sweet or rotting nearby. It is not going to solve a serious infestation on its own, the kind where you are dealing with dozens of flies a day, week after week. If that is your situation, there is almost always a source: spoiled food, left out, a trash can that needs a tighter lid, a drain that needs cleaning, and no home remedy of any kind fixes that until the source itself is dealt with. This saucer is one real, working piece of a bigger picture, not a replacement for basic cleanliness, and I would rather tell you that now than have you disappointed later. If you are setting this out on a porch or near a barn rather than inside the kitchen, I want to give you one variation worth knowing. Swap the sugar for 2 tablespoons of molasses instead. Molasses is thicker, it holds its scent longer in the heat, and it will not evaporate and dry out near as fast as a sugar and milk mixture sitting out in full sun on a July afternoon. The pepper works exactly the same either way. Warm it in with the milk, just as before. I use the sugar version inside the house, where the temperature stays even, and I switch to molasses for anything sitting outdoors past midday. It is a small change, but it is the difference between a saucer that is still working at 5 o'clock and one that dried up by noon. So let me lay out exactly what to do, in order, starting today. Step 1. Walk to your refrigerator and your spice cabinet right now and check what you already have. Most kitchens already own every ingredient on this list. Step 2. Warm your cup of milk, stir in the sugar, then the pepper, and simmer it those 2 to 3 minutes I showed you. Step 3. Pour it into a shallow dish, not a deep bowl, and set it in the exact spot where you see the most flies, whether that is a counter, a windowsill, or a porch rail. Step 4. Refresh that saucer every 2 to 3 days. Milk left out that long will start to sour, and the trick loses its pull, so a fresh batch keeps it working at its best. Step 5, and this is the one people skip, walk around your kitchen and porch and remove whatever is drawing the flies in the first place: ripe fruit left uncovered, a trash can lid that does not seal, dishes left in the sink overnight. The saucer works a great deal better once you have taken away the competition. And step 6. If you have small children or pets in the house, set the saucer somewhere up and out of their reach, a windowsill, or a counter rather than the floor. It is milk and pepper, nothing poisonous to a curious dog or toddler, but nobody needs a mess to clean up either. And step 7. Pay attention to timing. Flies do most of their hunting for food through the warm part of the day, so a fresh saucer put out first thing in the morning has a full day of drawing them in before it needs replacing, rather than one set out at dusk with only a few hours of daylight left to work. Now, here is one more piece almost nobody puts together with this, and it is worth the extra 2 minutes. The pepper and milk saucer kills the flies that are already inside, but if you want to keep new ones from coming in at all, take a lemon, cut it in half, and press whole cloves into the flesh of each half, 6 or 8 cloves to a half, and set those on the windowsill or by the back door. Flies cannot stand the smell of clove, and it is the same trick old farmhouses used on a windowsill to keep flies from ever landing there in the first place. It will not kill a single fly. I want to be clear about that. It is a repellent, not a killer, but paired with the saucer doing the killing, you have got both ends of the problem covered, the flies already in the house, and the ones trying to get in. Think about what I just walked you through. A cup of milk you already have, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of black pepper, at most $2 if you need to buy it fresh. Compare that to the $12 for a spray can that barely works, the $4 for a fly strip that dries out in 2 days, or the $80 to $150 for an exterminator to walk through your door and hang up the very same strips you could have bought yourself. No pest control company is going to put this recipe on their invoice because there is nothing on it for them to charge you for. And I will say this plainly one more time, because I think it matters more than the trick itself. This is a real, old, explainable method, not a miracle, and not a substitute for keeping your kitchen clean in the first place. Used together, the two of them will do more for your fly problem than anything in a spray can. Now, you may have already come across a different fly trap making the rounds online, the one built from a plastic bottle, apple cider vinegar, a bit of sugar, and a few drops of dish soap. I want to address that one honestly, because it is a real trick too, and it would not be fair of me to act like it does not exist or does not work. It does. It just works on a completely different principle than the one I just showed you. In that vinegar trap, the fermented smell of the vinegar and sugar draws the fly in through a funnel cut from the bottle's own top. Once inside, the dish soap has already broken the surface tension of the liquid, so instead of landing and walking back out the way it came in, the fly sinks straight through and drowns. It is a smart bit of kitchen chemistry, and it does an especially good job against fruit flies drawn to something fermenting on the counter. So why reach for milk and pepper instead of that one? A few honest reasons. First, the vinegar trap takes real assembly, cutting a bottle, inverting the top into a funnel, getting the proportions right so it actually seals shut. The milk and pepper saucer takes exactly as long as it takes to warm a pan and pour it into a dish. Second, and this is the part nobody mentions, a vinegar trap sitting open on your counter smells like vinegar all day, right next to the fruit bowl you are trying to protect in the first place. The milk and pepper saucer gives off next to nothing to a person standing in the room, while it is doing just as much work pulling flies away from your food. My honest advice, if you want to cover every corner of the problem, is to run both at once. Keep the milk and pepper saucer on the counter where you actually cook and eat, since that is where you want the least smell and the fastest cleanup. If you have a genuine fruit fly problem on top of your house fly problem, especially around a compost bin, a bag of potatoes going soft in the pantry, or a bowl of fruit past its prime, set a vinegar trap in that specific corner as well. These two tricks are not competing with each other for the same dollar. They are two different old kitchen habits, aimed at two different parts of the same problem, and running both together costs you $3 at the absolute most and asks you to breathe in nothing but supper cooking on the stove. So there you have it. Warm the milk, stir in the sugar, then the pepper. Simmer it a few minutes, pour it into a shallow dish, and set it where the flies gather. Clove-studded lemon by the window to keep new ones from coming in. Clean up whatever is drawing them in the first place. $2, 10 minutes of your time, and a trick that has been quietly working in farmhouse kitchens for longer than any exterminator's business has existed. If your own grandmother or grandfather had a fly trick that did not make it into this video, a bowl of sugar water, a bit of flypaper, I would like to hear about it down in the comments. Those little inherited tricks are exactly the kind of thing that gets lost if nobody writes them down. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I will see you in the next one.